Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist.
I am Chris. I'm not a licensed therapist, but apparently people actually like the Women Tell All. And so somebody has to come and disabuse them of that fact and make them realize that this is the worst episode of the season. On its face, on its merits, on its structure.
Listen,
this was awful.
This episode had some high points and definitely had its low points and felt like it lasted a million years. But I don't think this is the worst Women Tell All that we've seen.
I will say there was the first 15 minutes. I actually for a second thought, wow, am I actually going to like a Women Tell All? And then it flatlined. It was so bad after that. And I don't think we gained any new information, any new insight. And I mean, I think the people that we have seen shine proceeded to shine once again. And the people that, haven't been shining proceeded to put their foot in their mouth multiple times.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no bearing the lead here. Maria came out looking like an absolute all-star. Lexi put on probably the application or interview of her life for the next Bachelorette. And the Three Musketeers, Sydney, Leia, and Jess. I mean, I couldn't believe after Leia takes all that fire and then Sydney steps into the brink and starts taking fire. When Jess opened her mouth, I was like, what are you part of this same show? Close it. What are you doing? You're watching your couple of allies just take a beat down and she just can't get out of her own way. Just has to go and just and
no self-awareness, no
zero.
insight. Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like we both have a lot of opinions, but actually not a lot to say. So maybe that will be a relatively shorter episode, which quite frankly, I could use since this episode started an hour later and for whatever reason still lasted 2 hours.
And did not need to be 2 hours.
Anyway, so before we get fully into it, what we are talking about tonight is The Bachelor Season 28, Episode 10, which was the Women Tell All plus the conclusion of the cliffhanger from last week. Before we get into the episode, I just want to give you that quick reminder to hit that like button at the bottom of this video and also be sure to hit subscribe as well to our channel. We had this goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers. We are climbing our way there. So any support that you can give us to get us to that 1,000 subscribers, we really appreciate.
Yeah, and please also hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel. This episode was not traditional. This episode was not one that had the normal structure. So by virtue of that fact alone, we're not going to have the normal structure that we normally have. So I guess the question I would have is, would you like to start with the contents of the Women Tell All, or would you like to start with the conclusion of the cliffhanger?
Let's do the conclusion of the cliffhanger because that will inform the Bachelorette interview.
Excellent. So I feel pretty vindicated. She went in, Kelsey goes in and basically says nothing except for I missed you and wanted to see you. He, being Joey, cannot get out of his own head the fact that she made him feel this way. Is he being a little bit of a baby? Yes. But at the same time, as people have pointed out in the comments, I might be a little bit harsh to him. And he is under a tremendous amount of stress, and these seemingly small bumps in the road are just really have built to a mountain at this point, and so it doesn't take a whole lot to really put him under some emotional stress.
I mean, listen, historically speaking, when is we need to talk actually a good thing? Like if your boss says, hey, we need to talk, or a significant other says we need to talk, 9 times out of 10, it is for a more stressful reason.
Yeah, I don't recall ever somebody saying to me, we need to talk, and it being positive.
Yeah. And so this felt like Kelsey was wildly manipulated by the producers here. I could just hear them whispering in her ear, just saying like, keep it simple, don't overthink it. Just say we need to talk and you'll get your time. And, she could have just used the same words differently. Like, I'd love to talk to you.
I miss you. I really am having a tough day, and I would love to just see you, even if it's for 2 minutes, just to say hi and get a hug.
Right.
Same sentiment.
Yeah.
Would have been received significantly differently.
Yes.
Yeah. I do have questions that I'd like to get your take on with respect to Joey's resiliency, because he seems to now be struggling to bounce back. There was not actually a problem with Kelsey. She came in with a very different tact than I was expecting her to take based on what we saw at the conclusion of last episode. But even once she makes clear that she's there for more positive reasons, he can't bounce back from that. What was that about?
So you're right in terms of his difficulty bouncing back. He even says that, like, that, just those couple of words on a page sent me into this spiral is concerning. It's concerning to me that I can't, I saw this and I literally shut down. And while we watched it, that was what we were both saying, like, wow, he is so shut down right now, while Kelsey was talking to him. And I do think that this is, again, there's an emotional exhaustion. And again, the pressure is mounting every week. And every week we hear him say, I'm really worried someone is not going to reciprocate what I'm feeling. And so confirmation bias is working overtime right now because it's a protective mechanism. While it is causing him a great deal of stress, his brain and his body thinks that it's actually protecting him. If he has his guard up, if he is scanning the environment for all evidence and data to support the fact that something bad is going to happen, he feels like he is safer. And many of us do that, especially those of us who have insecurity or anxiety. This overthinking acts as a protective factor, but it is the cause of our own demise.
So I do have a theory, kind of related to what you're talking about here. It is my theory that in the back of all of our minds, we are subconsciously processing how people make us feel, and that sort of weighs, some bias in how we will perceive that person, even if it's not founded. So in this Kelsey situation, she made him feel some negative emotion. Even though it was unfounded, that is going to have some sort of residual memory in his subconscious when he is considering these three women as things go on. And even though nothing negative manifested from it, when he has to face two options, there is going to be some residual lingering memory of the negative feeling, even though it was unfounded. Any support for that clinically?
I don't know. I think his guard might be up a little bit more with Kelsey. What I wish that he would have said, and maybe we just didn't see it, was just like, even in a playful way, to say, like, I'm so mad at you. Like, you could have chosen different words. I wish I could have seen that dialogue more.
Him advocate for his own feelings,
or just clearer communication.
Yeah. Again,
vulnerability. And so it's possible that unresolved, like all that angst that she created. Granted, I mean, it's a
and by she we mean Leslie, obviously.
It's a two-way street here, right? Like, Kelsey did something that was immature and insecure, but she's not responsible for the way that Joey reacts to it. She didn't make him feel any type of way.
Sure.
Her actions contributed to his reaction. And so, yeah, part of this is Kelsey, but I think what I would have loved to have seen is a little bit more of a dialogue around, again, I wish you could have been a little bit more clear. We need to talk isn't often associated positively. What was I supposed to be thinking right now? And she had this, like, dumbfounded, like, I guess he's just upset. It was kind of bizarre to watch.
It was very 25.
Well, it was just very self-absorbed. I'm the star of my own movie. I'm going to act in a way that serves me and not necessarily think about the consequence. And I don't mean that, like, I don't think Kelsey is a selfish person, but she was trying to get her own need met in that moment. and she was just wanting reassurance from him. And so she wasn't thinking, she didn't have foresight operating at all. Her, when we get emotional, we get stupid. We can't access that part of our brain. So she clearly wasn't. But I'm way off track in what you asked me. I don't know. I can't answer your question around emotions and all of quite what you asked. Do I think this will residually be a part of his experience of Kelsey or his memory of Kelsey? Sure, especially with recency bias at play.
So we roll basically immediately into a rose ceremony, and no surprises here. Top two, Daisy, Kelsey. We've been saying it for a long time. At least I have been. Rachel has been lingering along. Seems like a nice enough young lady, but she was never going to beat out Kelsey or Daisy. That I think was apparent to everybody.
Well, yeah. I mean, we talked about it at great length a few weeks ago. Like the slow burn that they had, just wasn't burning quickly enough. She could never catch up.
And they always just struck me as nice friends.
Yeah, good friends.
But there never really seemed to be a spark there. What I did really like, and we'll get to it a little bit later, was for the first time in, 5 or 6 weeks, when Rachel and Joey have their time on the couch together, we saw her personality again that has been missing for all the weeks. What we saw in the first date when she got the first group date rose at the fake wedding thing, we saw that personality where she just jumped in and was already acting like they were married. And you saw that glimmer of that strong personality. And then it just disappeared for the whole season. And it wasn't until they're back on the couch at the Women Tell All that we see it again. And in some ways, it's so disappointing that it disappeared and she couldn't kind of, pull that out or shine that through more than she was able to in the season, because that's really where she does her best work.
Yeah.
That's where she's the most memorable. That's where she's the most engaging. I think she could have maybe had more legs had we seen more of that side of her. And I think she would be a much better candidate for potentially the Bachelorette if we had seen more of that. I think if I'm a producer looking at her as a potential Bachelorette, I would say, I don't know what I'm going to get on any given day. And I think I want to be able to predict somebody a little bit better than I could predict Rachel.
So the rose ceremony concludes, as we said, with Rachel going home. Our final two are Kelsey and Daisy. Next week, it's the finale. We're going to see the meeting of Kelsey and Daisy of Joey's family and see what happens with this big lead up we've been seeing to the final rose all season long. So that's to come next week.
It's going to be a letdown. I think it's all produced.
It typically is.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but we got one more to go.
Yeah. Okay. So you had thought of a nice idea of how to do this episode, where we're going to pick a handful of categories to talk about, some winners, some losers, rather than kind of go through every last event, because quite frankly, it was a lot of individuals just yelling and screaming at each other. So we're just going to kind of take it more categories. So let's start with winner of the night. Who won the night? Obviously, we all know the answer to this, but why do you think she won the night? Why
won the night, and why was it
answer?
Maria? Yeah. Maria just, I was definitely feeling a little disappointed with her in maybe the last episode that we saw her. But damn, that girl captured my heart again tonight.
The crowd loved her.
The crowd, was enamored with her as much as I am. And, I get it. She knows how to work a crowd. She knows how to work a room. She just, there are these phrases that they keep using, who's a girl's girl, which is whatever, a whole
nonsense.
Other thing.
Yeah.
But Maria seems to epitomize that in some way. She showed a level of maturity throughout the night while also advocating for herself. She did not back down. And that was one thing at a certain point I turned to you and I said, this would be the time where usually they might back down and just oh, well, it's all okay. And they didn't, Maria didn't do that. She didn't do that till the very end. And it was so well placed and well timed.
Yeah. I mean, Maria clearly won the night. so many things were excellent about this, but she advocated for herself. She defended herself. She had the crowd behind her. But more importantly, she had the entire house minus the 3 problems, right? Yeah. And they kept coming to her defense. Medina, Edwina, Evelyn, Lauren. Lexi, Lauren. I mean, everybody just kept... So we open this episode basically with Leia just taking fire from all angles, justifiably so. Everybody called her out on the fact that she's disingenuous and just had an axe to grind. She attempts to defend herself, and then she's just getting worked over by the crowd, by Maria, by all the other women in the house, and finally they take a break and she runs off crying. She comes back, and Sydney decides that it's her time to fire her shots at Maria. And then Maria deflects those as deftly as she deflected Leia's, with the rest of the women, again, coming to her defense. Okay, fantastic. Sydney, don't know why you stepped into that, but hey, you learn your lesson. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, and they're showing the close-ups of Jess. I'm like, Jess, don't do it. What? Don't do it. You just watched your 2 allies just get obliterated. Keep your mouth shut and live to fight another day. Save yourself from a bad edit, And what does she do? She goes to take her shot, and then she gets obliterated. Yep. And it's just like 3 people took shots at Maria. Maria deflected all 3 shots masterfully.
She was just even to the point where Jess was like, "Can I just speak?" And like Maria let her speak, and then Maria raised her hand. I was just like, "You
get it." You get because there was no one in that crowd that had. We watched the show. No one cared what Jess had to say. No. When she kind of feels like a bystander to the Sydney Leia drama. Who wasn't fully invested and was only there as an ally to the 2 of them. Right. And we just watched Maria obliterate the other 2. Jess had no legs to stand on.
Yeah. And obviously those 3 will be included in the next category. But the difference between Maria and the 3 of them were that Maria spoke with her full chest with so much confidence. Again, she did not let down. Her arguments were founded, and yes, she had the support of the house. Meanwhile, whenever Sydney or Leia or Jess spoke, they had no real confidence in what they were saying. Their voices were shaky. And is that fair to say, maybe they were a little bit nervous about doing this on TV? Doesn't matter. The optics were everything here, on top of just what was actually true and what was being revealed. And so I feel between Maria, Maria looked amazing. The confidence, the assertiveness, the self-advocacy. And then at the end was can we just be cool? And that she was the one who...
Well, so there's a lot to talk about with the other 3, but basically at the end of everything, the 3 girls basically, they go off, there's a few breaks, they come back, and all 3 of them, but in particular Leia and Sydney, start walking it back. We haven't seen an about face like this in quite it was a complete 180.
I never got to know you as a person. I watched you. I loved that girl.
Yeah, they took a break. They went back and they surmised correctly that they were getting obliterated and that they had to do something from a PR perspective to save face. And they came back and they basically completely 100% capitulated on the entire thing, trying to make peace. And it is Maria who then takes the opportunity, and again, she's so smart and calculating from a PR perspective. She realizes she has them beat, and she realizes that they've basically submitted. And so what does she do? She extends the olive branch. She doesn't wait for them.
Gets off the stage.
out of the driver's seat. Exactly. And this is so masterfully done, because it's clear that they were coming in and they were going to attempt to do the olive branch. She cuts them off and extends the olive branch to them. She's, to your point, she's the one in the hot seat, the driver's seat right now, and she leaves the hot seat to go and make peace. It is so powerful. So, are you familiar with the term getting the upper hand?
Sure.
Right? Do you know what getting the upper hand means?
Yes.
Right. So, yeah, for those of you who don't know, there's a psychological impact when you see two people shake hands. One person is always going to be above or on up versus, exactly. And so what happens is, and this is a really big thing.
Yeah,
when you
especially in politics.
In politics, when you see two people shake hands, you always want to see the back of their palm because that immediately tells you psychologically that they are the more dominant.
Yeah.
So when you see two leaders, two presidents or prime ministers or dictators or whatever meet, you will actually see them jockey for the position with the journalists.
Right.
And if it's say the U.S. meeting some smaller, less powerful country, the U.S. president will always get the upper hand. But there are times where dictators will meet, and George W. Bush had this great interaction once where he basically was not going to have the upper hand. So he came in and basically comes in for a hug so he doesn't have to actually do and have be the underhand in that situation. And I just, that's what I was thinking about during this entire exchange where Maria leaves the hot seat, right? Is such a power move, right? It's basically saying I've got the upper hand. I've got all of this power and clout, and I can leave it to come back and do the olive branch. It was the whole thing worked.
I know. Yeah. Just chef's kiss. So good.
Yep. Okay. So from here, let's transition off to, who needed a redemption arc or needed a transition in the narrative of the show. And then we'll talk about who actually earned, we think, the best redemption arc, or if anybody did. So obviously we know the three that are the main ones: Leia, Sydney, and Jess. Is there anybody else that you think needed some sort of redemption arc?
Medina.
Interesting. Okay. Why do you say Medina?
Because I think she was misunderstood in some way. Her statement was actually what caused the drama of the entire season.
Well, I don't know. Cause is the right word.
The interpretation of her statement.
I think that individuals were looking for a catalyst, and
I just think she deserved a platform to speak on, actually speak for her own experience rather than have these three musketeers defend her honor, which didn't need defending.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, I can get on board that.
Anyone in your mind?
Redemption arc? No, I think, to some degree or another, I wanted to see how Lauren was going to come out. I don't necessarily think she needed a redemption arc so much as we needed some maybe opportunity for closure to her story a little bit. So I don't know if you'd call that a redemption arc, but I think that there was an opportunity there for her to really give us a little bit more reason to care, I would say, right? She was kind of a big personality at the very beginning. Then she self-ejects, and it just,
Right. Yes. So, okay. So maybe Medina is not necessarily so much a part of this category of needing a redemption arc. Is there anything about Medina, though, that stuck out to you about the way that she presented in this episode?
I mean, I'm on the record. I thought Medina, the last couple of episodes that she was in before elimination, really captured my respect. I like Medina tremendously. I think that she's quite mature. She's a mental health clinician, right? I thought she did an excellent job in being a mature, respectful person in a house of younger, immature people that could have dragged her in. I think that she had a moment of weakness at the very beginning. It could have been nerves. It could have been a lot of different things. It was basically the first night, so there's a lot of emotion. So you give people a pass for that first night. It wasn't her fault that her commentary was used or her insecurity was used as a catalyst. Those girls were looking for a catalyst to pick a fight. And if it wasn't going to be that, it would have been something else. So I give a complete pass on that. I think that the way she handled Leia in that conversation in probably episode 4-ish, 5 maybe, was fantastic. So I don't necessarily agree that she needed a redemption arc, because I left her, at the point of her elimination, I thought very, very highly of her. But I understand what you're saying. And I do think that she said a lot of good things in this episode. I think she expressed her opinion and perspective. What I really thought was interesting was that she subtly, sort of, kind of said, I'm not with Sydney, without saying I'm not with Sydney. And Sydney, of course, made a face to that. And Sydney still proceeds to come over the top, like, I'm just defending a friend. And at no point does Sydney realize you're not friends. She, I don't think, likes you, actually, but she's too nice and too mature to tell you these things, right? Like, so you're using this friendship, you're defending. Well, a true friend would know if there's even a defense to mount, right? Like, Medina is a strong, mature woman. If she needs to fight a battle, she will fight a battle. She doesn't need you, Sydney, fighting her battle for her.
Right.
And yeah, so I thought that was kind of a whole interesting dynamic. But no, I'm very high on Medina. I'd like to see more of her in some way, shape, or form. I don't necessarily think that The Bachelor is the right franchise for her.
Yeah,
but I don't know where I would want to see her or what I'd want to see her doing. But I'm intrigued to see what she does and where she goes, because I like what I saw of her, you know, on the whole.
Yeah, I as I stated earlier, maybe including her in this redemption arc category was not the right fit. But again, giving her an opportunity to speak on her experience, I think, was really important. And she did double down on what her final conversation with Leia at the mansion about, you know, I don't need to be mean to people who aren't, you know, friends with my friends or something like that.
I love that we got more, because that was really chopped up in the original viewing, and I like that we got more context around that, because it just made Medina shine even more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And everybody else look horrible. Yeah.
I feel like you had said fitting her into this category might have been a bad fit. I feel like that is Medina, like the entire theme of Medina this season is just not a good fit. But fantastic, but just not a good fit.
Yeah, I do wonder how she would have been on a different cast, or maybe with a different Bachelor. You know, it's possible she wasn't necessarily cast for Joey. But yeah, maybe this just wasn't the right franchise for her to be on. But I grew to really appreciate her.
Yeah. So let's talk about Lauren very, very quickly. Okay. So she self-ejects. We got some funny Polaroids with the cake. So, you know, which I thought was interesting color, because after she has, you know, her emotional, I'm leaving, and she throws her cake all around or whatever, when she finds out it's not red velvet because production was totally messing with her.
We didn't see her throw the cake on the ground. We just saw the cake on the ground. We didn't know how it got there.
Well, when she was holding it for the Polaroid, it was already pretty smashed up. Let's not forget. But yeah, so... But now we see her playing with some Polaroids, and we get a little more color. Like, oh, okay, well, there was some levity after the cameras, you know, quote unquote, stopped rolling, or what we actually saw, which I thought was interesting. I just don't feel like she really used her time here to kind of say anything. I mean, the most she said was, "Hey, I'm the one who told you to shut up." To I think it was Jess, right, or whoever it was, Leia. It was Leia. So I was a little disappointed. That we didn't get a little bit more about that. Her sister was on stage. I don't think she said one word the entire night.
Well, that was her on the entire season too. Yeah. I mean, I was expecting, you know, another category that we can add here is Bachelor in Paradise, if it's even happening. Applications too, and I was really expecting a little bit more from Lauren on that side of things, because I could see the same duo, Lauren, Allison, going to Paradise together, and maybe trying the sister thing down in Paradise,
where I think it would play a lot stronger.
Yeah, I think so too.
And Lauren has the, and I'm not a huge fan of the personality that she's trying to put on and portray, but. And when I say not a fan, I mean, like, I wouldn't want to date somebody with that personality. Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just not for me. But I do think that is a personality that a producer would say, oh, I can make this work on the beach for 3 weeks. Like that, like there's she'll find a way to have some fun and party up and stuff like that.
Right.
Whereas Alice and I kind of think without Lauren there is pretty dull.
I agree.
So Lauren going to the beach makes sense. Allison going to the beach without Lauren, I think, is a bit of a snooze fest. So, but I think the sister thing could actually play fairly well in the beach. So we'll see. But I thought she was a big miss for me in that.
It was just anticlimactic.
Yeah.
It's fine. We can move on.
Yep.
So my question for you is, do you think really the three central figures that needed the redemption arc were Sydney, Leia, and you know what? Honestly, I wouldn't even lump Jess in that category. I forgot all about that last
Had
drama.
she just kept her mouth shut,
then it would have been fine. It would have been
yeah.
fine. So I think really the people that needed the redemption arc were Sydney and Leia.
Yep.
My question for you is, do you think either of them gained any ground?
I think they both lost ground tremendously. I think that they came in misreading if I'm in their situation and I walk into the room and Maria is getting, cheers 3 or 4 times louder than I'm getting.
And she literally has first chair.
I am reassessing my game plan, right? It kind of felt like these two came in and they said, I'm going to tell my story.
My truth.
Yeah, my truth. You don't have a truth, people. There's just your perception. There's only one truth. And, I am going to tell my story and I'm going to nail Maria to the wall this time around. And I'm going to make sure that people know that I was the one who was in the right, having no self-awareness that they were, that far back already. But even if you thought you were in the right, even if you walked in there, having already misread the situation, when you heard the crowd, you had to know. And, and Leia, I'm going to give a little bit of a pass on Leia because she went first. Sydney is the one who really messed up because she just watched Leia get obliterated and stepped into the line of fire unnecessarily. So they both needed a redemption arc. Neither of them got it.
Listen, you're being far too gracious here.
I'm being gracious. I'm really.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, but you're forgetting that they have been watching, even if their perception of the experience or their memory of the experience still felt very true to them. They're all watching the same show that we all did, and they all were able to see their edit on TV and see America's reaction to them, which was not favorable. How do you not go, regardless of crowd cheering or this or that, how do you not go in a little humble, just a little, even if just to play the game?
Well, for one, I think you're giving them too much credit, and people in general. I've talked a lot about how people lack self-awareness, and I don't think that just stops just because you're watching yourself back. I think when you watch yourself back, sometimes you can cringe a little bit and be like, I wouldn't have done that. But I still do think that there's some cognitive dissonance where, it wasn't as bad, or like, I could have said something different. Like you and I would watch something and say, oh, wow, that was like an 8 on the cringe. And you watch it back, I wish I hadn't said that, but it was still only like a 4 on the cringe. I do think that people do that. And I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that they do that. So it wouldn't shock me if there was some of that going on. It also wouldn't shock me if they walked in there and said, production, gave me a bad edit. They had it out for me. I'm going to go into this thing where it's going to be live and I'm going to tell the real story.
Right. That's true. They could be that.
They are young. They are young and delusional. Yeah.
But yeah, that was our criticism of them the whole time. They lacked self-awareness. So I don't know why. I guess I would assume that they would gain that in the couple of months since filming. I don't know. Therapist optimism over here that they would want to be self-reflective and want to grow. Didn't seem like they did that. They just used this for ammunition to further their own narrative, which didn't serve them very well.
Who took it worse in your opinion?
I think Leia.
Let me rephrase. Because I agree. I think who Leia came out looking worse than when they started? I think
Leia.
Really? Okay.
I think when she started pandering to this, you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
When she started saying all of this bullshit around, I never knew you. I never gave you a chance. You know what, Leia? At this point, just double down. Double down. I don't believe a word out of your goddamn mouth.
No,
God, I am fiery tonight. I don't believe a word out of your mouth. You just bullshit the entire season. You're making yourself look worse by now slathering on an extra topping of bullshit. Just double down. Show us who you are. Be a petty bitch. I would love that for you. Just own it. Own it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, except for, in my mind, I think Sydney it came out looking worse simply because she went second and she could have avoided.
At least Sydney said to Maria at one point, listen, I was annoying and I was cringy. Okay, you saw it.
There was a little bit there. Yeah, but again,
I also thought her glow up was good, Sydney. I thought she looked very pretty.
I didn't notice, honestly. It didn't catch my eye. I'm sorry.
No.
Was anybody's hair fantastic in this episode?
Lots of hair changes. I don't know that anyone had like great hair. But anyway, so that would be my criticism of Leia, just like the flip-floppiness.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, her and Sydney both. It was bad. So are we pretty much I think we're both saying the same thing, that there was nobody who earned a good redemption arc.
I think so.
I think everybody who needed a redemption arc, Medina, I don't think needed a redemption arc, but she had an opportunity to tell her story. But of the people who were there that had an opportunity to have some sort of redemption arc or closure narrative, none of them, most of them came out looking worse. None of them came out looking better.
I agree. Let's go to, let's go to hot seats, which I think double as Bachelorette interviews. Do you think that's fair?
I think that's, I mean, we ended up getting what? Lexi,
4. Maria,
Jen, and Rachel. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I don't, well, we could talk about who else after, but yeah.
Okay, so first up was Lexi.
I could see her as the Bachelorette.
I thought we were getting an announcement. The way that Jesse was kind of leading us out, I was like, is he telling us something?
So can I actually talk about, in general, every single woman, and this is something I really respect about Joey, is that every single woman had the same exact talking points, and not a one of them at any point in time has said even the slightest disparaging thing about Joey. Compare that against Gary from from Golden Bachelor, where he took a lot of heat, justifiably so. And I think that is actually quite telling of Joey as an individual, where an entire season, a stressful season, we've talked a lot about the trauma dumps he had to deal with, the hard, tough conversations, and through it all, even the conversations we didn't see, the stuff that was off camera, every single woman, without exception, came in and said he is literally perfect, and really no major criticism about anything he has handled. I thought that was actually probably the most noteworthy thing, in the collective hot seats.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm weighing my reaction, because one big criticism that I often have about this franchise is that the lead is usually put on a pedestal and like they're holier than thou and they can do no wrong. And so oftentimes on these hot seats, we see the women and just like the women contestants in general, just like fawning over what a fantastic human being the guy was. And he was like, just all right. Whereas with Joey, like their experience, or what they're referring to during their experience, seems really consistent with our experience with him too. It's like the first time in a long time I think we're in congruency with what they are sharing and what we are seeing, and that also feels good as a viewer.
Yeah. So is there a comp out there for a similar Bachelor that had this sort of similar congruency?
I don't think people have been this wild about a Bachelor since Ben Higgins. And I don't know, let me know, audience, if there was another Bachelor that you think was as beloved as Joey. Granted, next week is when Ben Higgins really made his mark and told 2 women that he loved them.
Oh, it's that one. Okay.
And so he got, a lot of heat
Yeah.
After that, but still beloved. So yeah, this and seeing the Joey mania at the top of the episode was also, again, very reminiscent of Ben Higgins' season when they crashed those watch parties. They haven't done that in years because people don't watch the show as much and don't really care. I haven't liked or even found The Bachelor attractive in I can't even remember the last Bachelor I thought was attractive. So it's we're in a different era of the show.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to these hot seats, yes, they all had very complimentary things to say. So let's go one by one. Lexi joins Jesse on the couch, and she talks about her exit. We get to see it again on TV, and then she talks about her experience post-show and the feedback that she's gotten from the audience.
I'm going to be honest. You remember when we used to watch that singing show, American Idol? What was my least favorite part of that show? He
always would say, I hate it when they let them talk.
I don't want the contestants to talk. I'm not interested in their backstories. Get up there and sing and get off the stage. That's kind of how I felt. And I like Lexi a lot. And I thought that there was some interesting things to be said at various different points in time. But you're on a TV show. There's going to be a lot of people on the internet who are going to, there are millions of people in this world. And this is one of the great things and one of the drawbacks of the internet is that every single person, despite how good or bad an opinion you offer is, there's going to be somebody that's going to agree with you. And then there's going to be somebody who's going to disagree with you. And I think it speaks more to the individual, what they focus on and what they see and how they respond. But you have to know that a bunch of people are going to hate on you and a bunch of people are going to find you inspiring. And it's up to you as an individual to decide how much you're going to pay attention and decide how much you're going to let it affect you. And I think Lexi is a great example, which is one of the reasons why I like her so much, of somebody who only seems to have seen or cared about or wanted to talk about the positive stuff. And I think that speaks very highly of her character. I think it speaks very highly of her maturity level.
I just want to take a quick pause to tell you that Revive is hiring. In our Miami and Pittsburgh offices, we have full and part-time W-2 and 1099 clinician positions available, and this includes both postgraduate and associate level licenses, in addition to fully licensed clinicians. In our Connecticut offices, we have full-time, fully licensed W-2 clinician positions available, including clinical supervisor opportunities. If you are interested in working for a company that values community, work-life balance, and your personal and professional growth, then we want to meet you. Find a link to our website in our bio. What I appreciated about Lexi was that she did use this opportunity as a platform to talk about having an invisible illness, to shed some light on endometriosis and fertility issues. It's so prevalent today for women, for women and men. And so I thought that she really leaned into, again, having a platform and bringing some visibility to something that is not really spoken about and people do suffer silently with. So I appreciated her kind of owning that and taking that role. This is a season that's been watched by, over 11 million people. So it got a lot of visibility and that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Next up, we had Jen.
I'm such a big fan of Jen. She's so cute and fun and I just right up my alley. But it felt performative.
Mm-hmm. Very rehearsed.
Felt very rehearsed, very performative. I like Jen and I was not interested in any part of what she had to say.
I agree. I was pretty bored and I felt as performative. I said rehearsed. I feel like so much of what we loved about her was her personality and none of that came through. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of a bummer for me. I was really, really looking forward to just hearing a little bit more from her, but maybe hearing more from her told us that she can't really, again, hold a season together. And so I thought she could have a good opportunity, a good show at being the Bachelorette, but even just seeing her in that hot seat made me think, like, I'm not sure.
Yeah, what I would say is she strikes me as a great supporting actress, but she's not a leading lady, right?
Oof, that is a harsh thing to say.
What do you mean? Being a great number two is a really hard skill.
Nobody wants to be.
Well, nobody wants to be, but the reality is most people are not good in either. So, saying you're going to be a great number two is actually quite a compliment when you consider that 99.9% of the population aren't going to be a good one or a two. This still puts you in the upper 0.0001% of people. So that's not an insult. I agree with you. I'm really disappointed that we didn't see more of Jen's personality, but kind of is what it is at this point. So I don't think she's going to be the Bachelorette. But I'm not even convinced she's going to be real strong on the beach either.
I mean, she'll be a hot commodity on the beach.
So she's cute as a button, yeah.
Right.
But I don't know.
I don't know if her personality will.
Yeah, I think she'll be gobbled up among stronger, more forceful, women. I think,
Yeah. Well, speaking of stronger and more forceful women, my bid for Bachelorette, my girl Maria. I just think
I don't see it.
She is too loved. Okay, there's been a lot of comparison that, and that you won't know this reference, but please
Hannah
weigh
Brown?
in here. No.
Okay.
Caitlin Bristow. There's been a lot of reference to Maria and Caitlin Bristow kind of being an out-of-the-box bachelorette, being a little bit kooky, being a little bit sexual. Maria's got the personality. She'd have a fun season. It would be non-traditional, which I don't know if The Bachelor wants to go in that way. Her family would be great. I mean, it would be entertaining. And she's beloved.
So
Would she want to be the Bachelorette, though? I don't know, because this is a whole, I mean, to equate her to Tyler Cameron would be wrong. But Tyler Cameron should never be the Bachelor because he's a god. And if he were to be the Bachelor...
Very blasphemous. False idols and all.
If he would be the Bachelor, he would have to do it perfectly because he's just too highly revered.
Yeah.
And so Maria will... Oh, she's already faced a lot of criticism. I don't know. I'm talking myself in and out of it.
Well, what you're basically saying is Tyler Cameron he has significant downside. There's significant...
There's more downside than upside for
what
him.
we call downside capture, meaning that the possibility of losses are greater to the downside than the possibility of gains to the upside. I can understand why Maria seems like a good pick. I can get on board the fact that she would be entertaining. I can get on board the fact that she would be a little bit out of the box and a little less conventional than what you'd expect. Whereas I think Lexi is right inside the box, perfectly conventional. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, what is it that ABC wants to do with this franchise? Do they want to take a risk? And I think that there's a greater macro thing that's beyond the scope of this, of what's happening within Hollywood right now, what's happening within ABC. When you look at all of the fumbles and that have happened, the amount of money that Hollywood has basically lost over the last, basically 5 years from mismanagement of its IPs. The question is, do they want to go out of the box or do they want to stick with the tried and true? I think that it's probably not a time where there's a lot of appetite at this point to go out of the box. But I do agree with you. She would be an entertaining. She probably would draw a crowd. I have suspicions that she would not want to do it. Because when somebody is so strong and so... You go on these shows... Let's not kid ourselves. 90% of the people who go on this show are not looking to find love. Sean from Charity Season was so unbelievably honest in his interview. He was like, it was an experience, and I'm going to just keep saying yes to the experiences. If I happen to find love, great, but I am there for the experience, i.e. I'm there for the clout, right? And he was so honest about it. That's what most of these people are about. And when you are so successful, such as a Maria, the doors are now open for you. You've already accomplished the goal. You would go to the beach. You would go to become the Bachelor or Bachelorette to continue to acquire the clout that you're looking for. If you've already done... Tyler Cameron's the same way. That's his name? Tyler Cameron? It's the same way. He acquired the clout he's looking for. The doors are open for him. There's only downside risk now. And I think Maria's kind of in that same category. I think maybe if a year or two passes and nothing happens, then maybe we start seeing her like, oh, maybe I got to go to the beach. Maybe I got to do some of these other things. Right. That would be my take on Maria.
Okay. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Last, we had Rachel.
Yes.
Oh. Did you forget?
No, I didn't forget. This one was, I'm.
You referenced before, though. Let's talk about the positives. You referenced before that we got a glimpse of her personality that we've been missing for a couple of weeks.
When Joey came and sat down next to her and she started joking around, like, how was that for you? And like the whole thing, it was like, this is what we're missing. And I really enjoyed that part of it. And it was, I mean, in some ways, I and I don't say this in a mean way, but like, I'm not interested in learning more about Rachel. I've seen enough. She has moments where her personality is fun, but I don't think that there's a great narrative story there to tell. And that's not a downside. Most people don't have a great narrative story, right? So I can't see her being the Bachelorette simply because like we've already like there isn't enough meat there, and I don't think there's enough depth, and I don't think that she's got enough enough consistency that production would want to take a chance on her.
I agree. I agree. I think consistency is the right word. If we had seen a little bit more consistency, maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But I think, as I had said, I think last week, that she has a lot of healing of her own to do as it relates to her past experiences. Her ability to open up needs some time, and so I don't think she's quite ready to take on again the pressure of being a lead and all of that stuff. You were in talking about Lexi seeming to reference Rachel's experience with some of the feedback that she was receiving. So my beginning thought about this is that Rachel was not going to bring this up. It was Jesse that brought it up. And this is the second time in a week, basically, between the Love is Blind finale reunion, and this Bachelor Women Tell All, that it seems like the show wants to create some sort of message or moment.
They're pushing the narrative that,
And so I feel like if Rachel is receiving that, that's horrific. And I don't understand like people on the internet. Like I just like truly do not understand it. Like it just doesn't, my brain does not compute that. But I don't think that this was her thing that she wanted to come up and talk about.
Yes, I agree that Jesse was trying to pull a lot of stuff out, and he was pulling a lot of stuff out of a lot of people that, quite frankly, it's just we don't need to know. It's not our business. It's their personal business. Leave them alone. Talk about the show. I don't need to know about somebody's relationship with their father. It's not my business. It's not America's business. Leave them alone. Kind of the contrast between Rachel and Lexi is, you don't think Lexi took a lot of heat too? Every single person on that stage took a lot of heat, and probably had a bunch of people that said that they were inspirational, right? Now, I'm not going to say that it was 50-50. I'm not going to say it was even. I'm sure certain people, the Leias and the Sydneys, took a lot more heat than most of the other people on that stage. I am sure of that. What I'm saying is that it's up to you as an individual to decide what you're going to read and what you're going to care about and what you're going to let roll off your back. And at the end of the day, nobody can make you feel any way. It's you who decides how you're going to feel. And it's you who decides what you're going to read, and it's you who's going to decide to respond or to react, right?
Not to bring this back up to where we started, but our tendency as human beings, with the exception of apparently Chris, is that we focus on the negative. That is literally how our brains are built.
This is loss aversion bias. Is literally one of the 16
Well, it's also just
biases
evolutionary psych, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like in order for cavemen to survive, they needed to look out for danger and scan and make sure that a saber-toothed tiger was not coming to eat them, right? We still have that very primitive part of our brain that is constantly focusing, emphasizing on the negative, because as I stated before, it's what is ingrained in us as a tendency to keep us safe. And so while like our whole school of therapy is essentially helping people to sort of shift and skew that ingrained tendency to see things not even positively but more balanced. So I can't fault Rachel here if people are criticizing her family, her culture, saying that she's disgusting, saying really disparaging, bigoted remarks to her. Like, of course, she's going to pay attention to that and focus on that, because it probably does feel really unsettling and a lack of safety that comes from that. So, like, again, respectfully, you're wrong.
There's a couple things, right? First, all right, we have the option of consuming whatever content we want.
Yeah, we can set our own boundaries. We can decide what we're going to take in and what we're not. Reading the comments about you on the internet is probably not the smartest thing to do. I don't disagree with we need to be mindful of like our inputs, like what we are consuming that helps fuel the way that we think about ourselves and feel about ourselves. Of course, again, not helpful to read things that people say about us. We were not built to know what every person was thinking about us at a given time. That's just not how our brains were built to function. And that's why social media is creating such a problem for us, because we were just never supposed to have this much access to other people. Other people were not supposed to have this much access to us. And we were not supposed to be this privy to what other people thought of us. It's just not the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's you touch on a lot of really important concepts there. But the most important one is that the internet provides a level of anonymity that allows people to be keyboard warriors or to make statements that they would never make in polite society or to somebody's face, because there would be consequences to those actions. And my response is, if somebody is not willing to say something to my face, or if they're going to hide behind it, like, I can never really understand or fathom why anybody gives any credibility or credence or care. And look, I get it. Like, I'm unique in that I just am able to just let things roll off my back. And a lot of people are not like that. But at some point, if you are going to be a public figure,
absolutely,
you must learn this skill.
I agree.
And you should probably practice and understand as much as you can practice. You should probably be prepared for it before you go on any show or in any situation where you're going to become a public figure. I'm sympathetic to Rachel. I am. But I also think that in some way, shape, or form, you should limit your exposure to things that are going to upset you, that are not going to be constructive to inure yourself to.
No. Okay.
Asked about my rose this week.
Love it. My thorn this week.
I hated to see that.
Let's wrap up with rose and thorn.
Okay. So my thorn, 2-hour episode. You got to be kidding me. Are you like, this episode could have been 30 minutes. The 15-minute intro to the women where they're all yelling and screaming and Maria's defending herself. The 15 minutes, I mean, I hated the intro thingy where we're going to run around all the places and see Joey being popular. All of the excess stuff, the stuff that Jesse's just trying to pull out of all the women about their family relationships, or how the crowd's dealing with them after the fact, and who's sliding to their DMs.
Sounds like
don't
the
care.
whole episode was then a thorn.
Literally everything. Like, this episode,
there was a lot of fat to trim.
It was all fat, and the fact that it started at 9 p.m. No. It's 12:35 at night. You're hopping on a plane tomorrow, which is why we're. If you guys haven't noticed yet, Amy's pretty much always on a Tuesday flight.
Okay, I'll just go to my thorn. My thorn is that this same as you, started at 9 p.m., which means that our recording couldn't start until after 11. This is way past my bedtime. The amount of stress that I feel as we reach the end of this recording because of what my day tomorrow is now going to be is immense. So
this is actually unfair of production to give us an hour later episode and then make it 2 hours, of which an hour and 20 minutes easily was boring and completely worthless.
I agree.
Yeah,
I'm with you. We can share that thorn tonight.
All right, your rose.
My rose. This might be a cop out. But I do like seeing the bloopers. They were funny. Like, I actually laughed out loud. Like, watching Joey go back for more macaron was funny. Sadly, like, watching some of the women fall or things fall on them was like kind of funny. I just like seeing them kind of more candid. I think that's really what it is about the bloopers, is like you just see them more candid, and so I liked that. It felt like more real. So yeah, I liked that.
Yeah. So my rose this week. Guess what I discovered this week?
What?
My mother is watching the show. My mother, who, for context, I did not see an adult watch TV until I was in high school. I was at my girlfriend's house and her parents were watching TV, and I thought we were like going to war or something crazy was going on, because I had never seen, I was probably 17 years old. I had never seen an adult watch TV unless it was like the Iraq War. And so that's how I just grew up. Like, we didn't even have cable till I was like 14 years old. And I happened to be talking to my mother this past week, and apparently the Golden Bachelor brought her in, and she, huge Joey fan, huge Joey fan. In fact, she thinks that Joey could be a therapist. And I'm just curious, do you have an opinion on that?
I have an off-camera opinion. But I do, listen, I think Joey's incredibly emotionally intelligent. He's a great active listener. He's very empathic.
I got a question about that. Why? I think that we are misusing the term emotionally intelligent. People seem to think emotionally intelligent means that you're capable of crying a lot. No. I feel like emotionally intelligent means you're able to regulate your emotions. In which case, Joey is very bad at that. Well, what is define for me emotional intelligence? Because I feel like it's a misnomer. To me, emotional intelligence should mean I understand my emotions and I'm able to regulate them and use my emotions in a efficient way. Yet people seem to use emotional intelligence to suggest, to what I would consider in many cases, emotional intelligence tends to indicate actually negative qualities in people more often than not.
So the definition of emotional intelligence is the ability to manage both your emotions and understand the emotions of people around you. I don't think Joey is doing a terrible job of managing his emotions, because we see him get tearful from time to time. He's not lashing out. He's barely shutting down. I mean, the amount of stress he's under is insane. So I think he's doing a fantastic job of managing his emotions. I'm sorry he's not a stoic prince like you. But I think he also, again, his empathy is so deep, and his ability to understand others' emotions and their experiences also runs deep. So I don't think it's fair to judge his ability to manage his emotions given the level of stress that he's under on a day-to-day basis. So
would you qualify me as being highly emotionally intelligent?
I would not.
I'm taking that as a compliment. Because I understand and regulate my emotions extremely well.
And the emotions of others?
I don't see how those are my problem. I regulate your emotions all the time.
All right. You're not reading the room right now that I'm tired. I need to go to bed and we need to wrap up.
I got a second wind. I'm ready to go for another half hour.
No.
All right, let's get out of here. Take us home. Take me home. I don't know that song. That's a song, right? Take me home, something, something. It's a country song, right?
I have no idea.
Okay.
So thank you for being on this wild ride. We definitely, again, totally improvised with the structure of this episode. So we want some feedback. Did you like that we kind of stuck to categories? Would you prefer that we went through chronologically? Other ideas of how to talk about a show, an episode like Women Tell All we'd love to hear it. We will be back next week with the final episode of The Bachelor. We're going to get the final rose and after the final rose. So lots to discuss there. I really am imagining that episode's probably going to be more than 2 hours, but
I hope not.
we'll see. So come back here next week and check out our thoughts to the finale episode. If you can't wait until then to check in with us, be sure to follow us on Instagram at ReactivityTV. Also, if you need more podcasts in your life, we have another podcast called Wishing You Well, where me and my therapist co-host, Catherine, talk about all things wellness, helping you navigate your wellness journey. We answer listener questions about what it's like to have a significant other that maybe doesn't take their health as seriously as you do. And we have some great... And we have some great guests that have been on recently and that are coming your way. So again, subscribing to our YouTube channel is a way to watch Wishing You Well on YouTube. You can also check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. You can follow Revive at ReviveCFW on Instagram. You can follow me at Amy Albero LCSW. You can send us emails to reactivitytv at revivecenterforwellness.com or revivecfw.com for short. We'll put all of this in our show notes. Thank you so much for being here, for bearing with us on this journey of an evening. We will see you next week. Bye.
I went to the gym on Sunday.
Dragged there.
See ya.